Do you still think that fat is bad for you? That it makes you fat? Look, if you cannot focus on this type of unedited video, please click off now. I don't want you to be looking at comments and scrolling while I talk. I want you to be fully focused. So, if you cannot focus, please click off now. I remember one time I was buying Brazil nuts from a local market, and I wanted to buy about half a kilogram or 1 kilogram, I don't remember. And the woman who was selling them was like, "You know that you cannot eat more than 2 of these per day, right? Because they have a lot of fat, and that is bad." Well, that woman was obese, and I'm sure she was on the high carb, low fat diet. There are so many obese and sick people telling us how to eat right nowadays, telling us to go on a high carb, low fat diet. The fat doctors, the fat teachers. Right now, go on Google and search Minister of Health and look at images. We listen to what these people say. We listen to them when they tell us that fat is bad. And I used to listen to them as well. And look at what I looked like. Do I look healthy? And so I changed my diet. I transformed my body. And look at what I look like now. Can you guess how much fat I consume per day? It's about 250 grams per day. Does that seem like a lot to you? Because it's not. Let me ask you this. If you wanted to build muscle, if you wanted to get an attractive physique, would you listen to a skinny person? If not, then why do you keep listening to these fat people? If I've got your attention in this video, you'll learn about fat. So, if fat is not bad for you, if it doesn't increase your fat, what does it actually do? Fat is used by our body to produce important hormones, such as cortisol, testosterone, estrogen, and so it doesn't increase your fat, unless you consume more calories than you need. If you are in a calorie surplus, it doesn't matter what you eat because you will gain fat. Your body has a surplus of energy that it doesn't need, and so it stores it in the form of fat. But carbs, on the other hand, do actually increase your fat without being in a calorie surplus. You see, your body uses carbs as energy in the form of glycogen, but when you have too much glycogen, your body stores carbohydrates as fat. That happens most of the time when you don't do enough exercise, when you're not active. Carbs also give you many health problems, like increased risk of diabetes, visceral fat, and many more things, but this is not the focus of this video. If you want to learn more about the effect of carbs on the body, especially simple carbs, you should check out the video titled Fat Chance Fructose 2.0. You can find it in the info card. Now, let's talk about fat. There are multiple types of fat. But let's begin with trans fats. The only thing that average people get right is that trans fats are bad. You mostly find trans fats in processed food, like cakes, pastry. And so, trans fat increases your risk of cardiovascular disease. So you should avoid consuming trans fats completely, especially the ones from processed food. The trans fats you find in natural foods like meats are not bad. No, there's also saturated fat. I'm sure we've heard many times that saturated fat is bad for you, that you need to avoid it and all of that. Well, that's not true. You see, your body has this thing called cholesterol. Every cell requires cholesterol to function. Every cell membrane is made out of cholesterol. So, cholesterol is used by our body to produce important hormones, such as testosterone, cortisol, estrogen. You cannot live without cholesterol. But the problem is, for your body to use cholesterol, it needs to transport it through the bloodstream. But cholesterol is made out of fat, and so it's hydrophobic. That means it cannot be transported through blood. That's why lipoproteins exist. Lipoproteins are made out of lipids and proteins. They transport cholesterol through the blood. There are 4 types of lipoproteins, but the main ones are LDL and HDL. Low density lipoprotein and high density lipoprotein. LDL is used to carry cholesterol from the liver to cells. But on its way there, some LDL gets stuck, and if you have too much LDL, you get a buildup and you have an increased risk of blood clotting and of cardiovascular disease. So that's why HDL exists. HDL transports LDL back to the liver. So that's why people say that LDL is bad and HDL is good. But LDL is not only bad. Your body needs LDL to produce hormones, to carry cholesterol from the liver to cells. So you need to have enough LDL, but not too much of it. Saturated fat increases both your LDL and HDL, but LDL comes in multiple sizes. And saturated fat increases the bigger particles of LDL. They're not as bad for you, but they still can cause cardiovascular disease. So too much saturated fat is bad for you, but we need enough saturated fat to be able to make hormones. So how much saturated fat should you consume? That should be no more than about 10% of your daily calories. That means you divide your maintenance calories by about 90. If you don't know your maintenance calories, you can look up a calculator online. But if you don't like math, or you don't want to do calculations, you should consume no more than about 50 grams of saturated fat per day. If you consume too much for one day, it won't be a problem. But consuming too much for a long time can increase the risk of cardiovascular disease. It also depends on the person. Now, there are also monounsaturated fats. These fats increase your HDL. They don't cause any problems. So, consume as much as you want of monounsaturated fats, but make sure to get enough. Now, there are polyunsaturated fats. There are 2 types, omega-3 and omega-6. I'm sure we've heard about omega-3 because we don't get enough of it usually. We get too much omega-6. And getting too much omega-6 leads to a bunch of problems like inflammation. And therefore, you also have decreased hormone levels, like testosterone. If you want to be healthy, you need to have a ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 between 4:1 and 1:1. Consuming too much omega-6 will lead to problems like inflammation, as I said, and consuming too much omega-3, which is rare, unless you get some kind of supplement, will also cause some problems. So try to stay within that range. Now, if you have a good omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, but you consume too much omega-6, then you can also have problems. The same problems like inflammation. So don't consume more polyunsaturated fats than about 5 to 10% of your maintenance calories. That means you divide your maintenance calories by about 45 to 90. Once again, if you don't want to do any calculations, then don't consume more than about 30 to 60 grams of polyunsaturated fats per day. So try not to consume more than about 16 to 48 grams of omega-6 per day. And you need to consume enough omega-3s. The minimal amount of omega-3 that you need to consume is the amount of omega-6 that you consume divided by 4. So if you consume 32 grams of omega-6 per day, you should consume at least 8 grams of omega-3. So in conclusion, avoid trans fats, get enough saturated fat, but not too much. Don't consume more than about 50 grams per day. Get enough monounsaturated fats. Consume as much as you want. Get enough polyunsaturated fats, but not too much of them. Don't consume more than about 30 to 60 grams per day. Maintain a ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 between 4:1 and 1:1. Don't consume too much omega-6. Keep your consumption between 16 and 48 grams per day. Now, I mentioned earlier that carbs are bad for you, and so that's why ketogenic diets exist. When you go on a ketogenic diet, on a low-carb diet like keto, after about 2 to 4 days, your body will go into ketosis. That means you will start burning fat for energy. That type of diet has many health benefits like sustained energy, you don't have spikes and crashes because you're using fat for energy. You also have better focus, mental clarity, so I recommend you check out keto. Now, if you found this video useful, I recommend you check out my free guides, link in the description. Don't forget to subscribe if you liked this video, and remember, no matter what your mind tells you, never give up.